Nation.
SMD Law is the official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Check them out on the interwebs at smdalaw.com or at 866-529-3537. No matter where you are in the state of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, it doesn't matter. They have an office near you. So whether you need to send a letter to an annoying neighbor, or you're a criminal and you need defense, maybe you just have problems with elder law, check them out, smdalaw.com today. The official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Call them first. Then you act.
Good evening and welcome back, Spartan Nation. We're with Matt Hladek from thespun.com, the best sports aggregate site on the web, doing their yearly. He joins us every week for 2 segments, but once a year he joins us for 4 segments, a whole hour, where we break down the Spun's top 25. At number 11 is a team that I have ranked them in Nebraska as my 2 biggest potential surprise teams. I think both of these teams, Nebraska and this team, are a year away from not being surprises, but being legitimate contenders in their conferences. But at number 11, the Texas A&M Aggies, I love this team. Would not be shocked if they're higher or a little bit lower, but next year I fully expect them to compete big time. I think they're going to go 9-3. I'll call my shot right now. I think they're 9-3. Matt, your thoughts on having the Aggies at 11?
Well, talk about a team that ended the year on a high note in 2018, 4-game win streak. And the hopes are there for even more for a New Year's Day bowl game in 2019. Kellen Mond showed star potential last season, and I think you can expect a lot more from him as he continues to develop at quarterback. He does lose Jay Sternberger at tight end, but they have a lot of receivers to go to. They have Courtney Davis, Jamon Osmond, Cameron Buckley. Those are 3 of their leading 4 receivers all back. Defensively, they lose 7 starters, but they have one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, Mike Elko. What can you say about him when you look at how much of a major hire he was for Notre Dame, transforming their defense 2 years ago, going from a 4-8 team to a 10-win team, and then how important it was for Texas A&M to poach him from Notre Dame and what he did there last year. So the defense is always in good hands as long as he's around. They also have a tremendous incoming class. It's going to be freshmen. You're seeing Jimbo Fisher's recruiting prowess start to take shape and start to reap benefits already. I think the reason why they could be 1 year away is when you look at this schedule, they got to go to Clemson early in the season. They obviously have to play Alabama, Auburn, and LSU because they're SEC West opponents. And their conference one of their crossover games is against Georgia. I mean, those are 5 absolute bear teams to have to deal with on one schedule. I think they'll probably win a couple of those games, but in order to really contend, you'd have to win at least 4 of those games. I just don't see them doing it this year.
I agree. That's why I say 9-3, but man, I love that team a lot. I love me some A&M Aggies. I said you had 2 controversial Big Ten picks. The first was Penn State, but at number 10, this team lost a ton of talent, both on the field and coaching. I think there's too much respect because it gets click. I don't understand how Michigan's at 10. Listen, I'm not hating on them because they're Michigan. I had them higher last year than a lot of other people, but this year I think they just lost too much to be at 10. Your reasoning for the Wolverines at 10?
Well, you talk about what they lost on defense. You can't try to downplay the amount of talent that's gone off that defense. The one thing that they have to hope for this year is offensively, the pieces are there to be maybe the best offense that they've had under Harbaugh. It all depends on how Josh Gaddis, the new OC, how he starts to utilize guys and how he's able to get the most out of Shea Patterson and a couple of those receivers. As usual, their schedule is really tough. They got to go to Penn State and 2 Wisconsin, plus they play Michigan State. And that Army game, we talked about being sneaky in week 2. I don't think they lose to Army, but it's always never fun to play the Service Academy teams when they're good and when they're running that option. I'm really giving Michigan, I guess, the benefit of the doubt because of some of the talent that's still on the roster. I think that talent-wise, there's a potential here to be a really good team.
Agree.
I've seen some other people rank them 4th, 5th preseason. I think that's too high. I think you're giving them too much credit there, and I think there's too many unknowns to put them up that high. But I do think they can be a top 10 team, And again, I'll finish with this because I finished my capsule on them. This season, the perception of the season really hinges largely on the outcomes of two games and especially one game. Notre Dame and to a much larger degree, Ohio State. They lost to Notre Dame last year. It will be a big non-conference matchup late October. If both teams are playing well, there could be some playoff implications. And of course, Ohio State. This is the year you have to. While I think Ohio State on paper going into the season is the better team, this is the year if you're Harbaugh, you have to get a win against them at home. It's your fifth year. You're 0-4.
I agree with you. Let me ask you this question. Do you believe with me the Ohio State game is the biggest game of Jim Harbaugh's career so far at Michigan?
I would agree. I think without a doubt. And I think that's the case even if if they're 10-1 in that game, or if they're only 8-3 or something like that. It's a huge game because that could change perception and change the storylines and the narratives very quickly.
If they go 11-1 and lose that game, I think the narrative is that Harbaugh can't get over Ohio State. And if they are 1-11 and beat Ohio State, I think there's celebration in Ann Arbor. We're talking to Matt Hladek from thespun.com. It's always good to have Matt on to do the spun.com's college football top 25. At number 9 is a team that you may remember, Matt. Last year when I had the Spartan Nation top 25, I took some grief. I had them high. This year I'm going to have them a little bit lower than you because they lost so much talent. But I think finally the Horns are back. Hook 'em Horns, Texas at 9.
Well, Texas won 10 games last year for the first time since 2009 when they played for a national title. They beat Oklahoma. They beat during a regular season. They beat Georgia in a bowl game. There's a lot to like about what they did last year. There's a lot to get excited about with the future with Tom Herman. Talking about another team that defensively just lost a ton. 9 starters gone. How they replace them is going to go a long way to see what level they reach this year and if they can reach their full potential. Todd Orlando is an excellent defensive coordinator. We've seen the work he's done there and another stop. So, he's a capable guy running the defense, but how does he get the most out of some less experienced guys will go a long way. On offense, Sam Ehlinger, what do you say about him? He's just one of the best two-way dual threats in the country. Devin Duvernay and Colin Johnson, 2 studs on the outside. The Brew McCoy transfer saga was, definitely a blow because having him as a 5-star freshman receiver would have been another nice weapon to have in the program and for this year and beyond. But they still are pretty well stocked at the skill positions. We'll know how early in the season just how good Texas is or isn't, because in week 2 they have LSU in Austin, one of the best non-conference games of the season, and that will be a big barometer for both programs, I think, what to expect the rest of the fall.
At number 8, at number 8, you've got a team I find really intriguing. They lost a lot, but I'm just going to tell you, this is a team I fully expect to get to 10 wins, maybe even 11. I'm talking about the Irish of Notre Dame.
Sure, I think that listen, Notre Dame 12-0 regular season last year. Do I expect them to duplicate that this year? I don't, especially when you consider they have to go to Georgia, have to go to Stanford late in the season, have to go to Michigan. They play Virginia and USC as well, even though those games are home. So they have some tough opponents. But this is a team that can definitely win 9, 10 games again and find themselves in the mix for a New Year's Day bowl. They lost a lot defensively. There's no denying what they lost in the interior defensive line and with the heart and soul with the linebackers there with Tavon Coney and Drew Tranquill. But there's also talented prospects and guys who played smaller roles last year who are capable of stepping up and filling those spots. We'll see how well they fill them. And I think when you look at the defensive ends, Dalen Hayes, Julian Okwara, and Khalid Kareem, that 3-man, the 3-headed monster defensive end, it's as good as almost any team in the country. Offensively is where this team could really break out. They were a good offense last year. Ian Book will be the full-time starter. He has basically the season under his belt. Chase Claypool, Chris Fink, expect big things from Brock Wright and Cole Kmet at tight end. And there's some other guys, some younger guys that are either redshirt freshmen or true freshmen that could be ready to break out on the outside. So I think Notre Dame, again, is going to be a 9-10 win team at least.
How big is that game at Michigan?
It's huge. It's huge because if you're Notre Dame and you have one loss at that point, say you lose to Georgia, that Michigan game is a must win and is a huge resume booster to keep your playoff hopes alive, as well as to have bragging rights in that rivalry and bragging rights on the recruiting trail, because those two teams overlap so much with the type of recruits, type of prospects that they pursue. And for Michigan, it's huge because if you're Jim Harbaugh, you have to defend home field. You have to beat another quality opponent. You have to win that game. So I think that game, it was a huge, huge resume game for both teams in week 1 in 2018. I think in mid-season, late October in 2019, it's going to be the same thing.
Totally agree with you. He is Matt Halatic from thespun.com. When we come back, we're digging in way deep, and we're going to tell you who he thinks wins a national title.